How to factorize difference of two squares. So first, before you can factorize difference of two squares, you need to know what is a perfect square. So a perfect square is any number that you put under the square root, it gives you a whole number. For example, if you say square root of 4, if 4 is a perfect square, the answer that you get is just going to be a whole number, which is 2. So therefore, 4 is a perfect square. For example, the square root of 16 is equals to 4. So therefore, 16 is a perfect square. So now if you have x squared is a perfect square because if you say square root of x squared, you are going to get x. So now you can have 4x squared. So 4x squared is a perfect square because if you put it in a square root, you're going to get what? 2x, because the square root of 4 is 2 and the square root of x squared is x. So the answer is 2x, and those are whole numbers. So now we can start now to factorize difference of two squares. So if we have x squared minus 4, this is called a difference of two squares. The difference means subtraction between two perfect squares. So if you factorize difference of two squares, you are going to open two brackets. Then after you open two brackets, you're going to first say, what is the square root of the first term? So square root of x squared, we know that is going to be x. And then also, what is the square root of the second term? So the square root of 4, we know that is 2. So we're just going to write these factors that come out from the square root as what? As x and 2, x and 2. And the last thing is that because this is a difference of two squares, we are going to have different signs. So this will be minus and plus. So if you simplify all this, it must get you back to what you had. So let's try to simplify it. We're going to say x multiplied by x, and then x multiplied by positive 2, negative 2 by x, negative 2 by positive 2. So this will be x multiplied by x is going to give us x squared. And then x multiplied by 2, that's going to give us positive 2x. Then negative 2 multiplied by x, that is going to give us negative 2x. And then lastly, negative 2 multiplied by positive 2, that's going to give us negative 4. So we can clearly see that we have x squared minus x squared. 2x minus 2x, that is going to cancel out. And therefore, what you're going to be left with is what? Is x squared minus 4. So therefore, our answer is the same thing as the problem. So therefore, we have factorized that successfully. So that is how you factorize difference of two squares. So now, please feel free to pause the video and try the problems on your own before you can look at the answer. Let's say, for example, we have 16x squared minus 9. So the first thing that we look at is that we have a difference, which is minus. And then we also check if these two terms, are they perfect squares? So now these terms are perfect squares. So this means that what is the square root of what? Of 16x squared. We know the square root of 16x squared is going to be what? It's going to be 4x. Because the square root of 16 is 4, and the square root of x squared is x. And then now what is the square root of 9? The square root of 9 is just going to be 3. So now we have these factors that come from the square root of our terms. So we are going to open two brackets and just write our factors to say we have 4x, 3, 4x, 3. So you must always write your factors in the way they are, starting from the factor of the first term and the factor of the last term. So now, the last thing that you do is that you know the signs are going to be different, so it's going to be minus and plus. So it doesn't matter which one starts as minus or which one is plus. So you just put different signs. So that will be the factorizing of that difference of two squares. So now let's say, for example, we have the following difference of two squares. We have 6x plus y all squared. Then we have minus 9. So now, We are going to first look at what? At the sign. To say now, the sign between our two terms is negative. And the second thing is that, is this number here a perfect square? Or is this number here a perfect square? So, but now how do we know that a number is a perfect square? We put it under a square root. So we are going to put the first term, which is what? Which is 6x plus y under a square root. And then the squared will cancel out with the square root. And then we are just going to have what? 6x plus y. So this will be our first factor. And therefore, if we look at the second term, which is 9, so if we put 9 under the square root, so what we get is what? Is going to be what? Square root of 9 is going to give us 3. So we have the factor as what? As this factor here, 6 plus y, 6x plus y, and 3. So now you're going to open the two brackets and say what? My first factor is what? Is 6x plus y. And then this is 3. And then you also have 6x plus y. And the other factor is 3. And then remember now, the sign will have to be what? Will have to be different. So now you can say this is plus and that is minus. It is really up to you. So that is how you will factorize that difference of two squares. So now let us move on and do another example. So remember, you can pause the video and try the example by yourself. So let's say we have 4x squared minus 4x minus 3y all squared. So the first thing that we do, we identify if ever we have what? We have a difference. So difference means minus. And then we check now if this is a perfect square and if that is a perfect square. So now how do we check that a number is a perfect square? We are going to put what? 4x squared under a square root. And that will give us 2x. So it's a perfect square. Then we're going to put what? We're going to put 4x minus 3y all squared under square root. And therefore, we know the squared will cancel out with the square root. And then we are left with what? With just 4x minus 3y. So now we have these two factors as our factors. So now we're going to do what? We're going to open two brackets. Okay? So now when you open the two brackets, you must be careful in this case. Because now what is happening is that, let me just erase here to create a space. We already know our factors. So I just want this bracket to be a little bit bigger. Okay, so now you can put your factors now. So you're going to say what? This is going to be 2x. Okay, and the second factor is what? Is 4x minus 3. So now because this factor here is 4x plus minus 3, you can put the bracket on the side that you're going to put the negative sign. Okay, and then this one here, it really doesn't matter. It's just going to be 2x. And then you have what? You have 4x minus 3y. So it is very much important for you on the side where you're going to put the negative side, you put the bracket if you have two terms after. So this one here, it is not that important that you put the bracket. You can just put plus here because if the sign is positive, it does not affect anything. So now you can simplify this out here to say now our sign is a negative sign. So therefore, what is going to happen is that this is going to be 2x, but now this negative will multiply with that out. So it's going to be negative 4x. And negative will multiply with that out, so it's going to be positive 3y. And therefore, you open the bracket. So inside here, you can just simplify because you have 2x plus 4x. That is going to give you 6x. And then you have minus 3y. So now you can also simplify out this part of the bracket here. Because now you have 2x and minus 4. So 2x minus 4x, that's going to give you negative 2x. And you have plus 3y. So that will be how you do what? You simplify that difference of two squares. So this is going to be your final answer. So now let us look at one last more problem. To say that we are having a squared, b squared, c squared minus 1. So now we can see now we have a difference between two terms. But now, secondly, we need to check if these two terms, are they the perfect squares? So you're going to put the first term inside the square root. So you're going to have a squared, b squared, c squared. So the square root will cancel the square of everything else. And then your factor is going to be a, b, c. And then the square root of 1 is just going to be 1. 1 is also a perfect square. So now if you have your factors, you can do what? You can open your two brackets and just write your factors a, b, c, and 1, a, b, c, and 1, and then you can just put plus or minus. So that is all for this video. Thank you very much.